Good evening, Virgo. 20 years. I want to start there because 20 years is not nothing. It is not the experience of someone who is still learning what the patterns look like or who is still developing the ability to distinguish what is significant from what is the ordinary movement of energy and circumstance that most lives contain in the regular and unremarkable form of things happening without the particular quality that marks a moment as genuinely unusual. 20 years is the experience of someone who has learned what unusual looks like by having seen enough of the usual to recognize the difference between them without confusing one for the other in either direction. And when someone with 20 years of experience says, I have never seen this, the statement carries the weight of everything they have seen in those 20 years that this is being distinguished from as something different, something that has not appeared in that form in the entire preceding 20 years of looking. Welcome, Virgo, and understand that what I am about to say is significant in the specific way of something that has not been seen before. In this form, in this combination, in this particular and extraordinary configuration that your energy is presenting right now, let me describe what I saw. That produced the my God and the I have never seen this, because I think you deserve the specific description rather than only the general claim that something unusual appeared without the particular content of what the unusual thing actually was. What I saw was an alignment, not in the vague and general sense of things being generally aligned. In the comfortable and approximate form, that alignment is sometimes used to describe when things are simply going well for someone, and the word alignment is used as a kind of shorthand for the general favorability of the energy around their life. A specific and precise alignment of 4 distinct dimensions of your life that are pointing in the same direction at the same time in the specific and convergent form that 4 dimensions pointing together produces, rather than the ordinary state of 1 or 2 dimensions pointing somewhere while the others point elsewhere or remain unclear in whatever direction they are eventually going to move. When conditions allow them to move there, 4 dimensions pointing together in the same direction simultaneously is what I have not seen in 20 years in quite this form for quite this particular sign in quite this particular season of their particular story. I want to name the 4 dimensions because the naming is the specific thing rather than the general. And the specific is what makes this useful to you as a description of what is actually happening, rather than as the general and comforting assurance that things are going well, which, while pleasant, is not the same as the specific understanding of what is going well and why and in what particular configuration, that has not been seen before. In this form, the first dimension is the relational dimension, and in this dimension, what is pointing in the same direction as everything else is a specific connection that is moving toward a form it has not previously been in, or that has not previously been available to it, because the conditions for the form were not yet present in whatever way they are present now. That makes the moving toward the new form the natural next thing for this specific connection in this specific moment of both your stories. The second dimension is the material or professional dimension, and in this dimension, what is pointing in the same direction is a result that is forming from the accumulated effort of the Virgo who has been working at the standard that Virgo always works at, regardless of whether the working is being recognized in the visible and rewarded form. That would make the not stopping easier than the purely internal commitment to the standard that has been the primary available motivation in the preceding period, when the external recognition was not yet proportionate to the internal investment. The result is forming, and it is going to be proportionate to the investment in the full and complete form of something that finally matches what was put in, rather than the partial and insufficient match that the preceding period was providing while the full result was still forming. I want to pause here and speak about the Virgo relationship to this kind of result, because I think it matters for how you receive it. When it arrives in the full and proportionate form I am describing, Virgo does not always know how to receive result in the full and proportionate form of their actual size, because the Virgo relationship to achievement is complicated by the particular internal critic that Virgo carries, which is always ready with the next bar, the moment the current bar has been cleared. Without allowing the clearing of the current bar, the full moment of recognition and receiving that the clearing deserves before the next bar has been identified and the focus has shifted from what was achieved to what has not yet been achieved, which is always something, because the bar never settles at a permanent resting place. For someone with the particular Virgo relationship to standards and to excellence, when the proportionate result arrives, receive it fully before the internal critic arrives with the next bar. Give it the moment it deserves as the specific and complete confirmation of the investment that produced it and of the standard that the investment maintained without external reward for the duration of the preceding period, when the standard and the investment were their own justification rather than the justified by the result. That is now arriving as the proportionate return on everything that was put in, is the internal dimension, the dimension of who you are becoming in the specific and real form of someone whose interior has been doing the work that the interior does when it is genuinely engaged, rather than only performing the engagement for the benefit of external expectations or social presentation or the particular form of self-improvement. That is more about the image of the improved self than about the actual becoming of someone who is genuinely different in the interior dimension from the version that existed before the interior work happened. What is pointing in the same direction as everything else in this dimension is a completion, a specific and significant internal completion of something that has been in process for the duration of the preceding period, and that is arriving at its natural conclusion in the form of a settled and stable version of yourself that is available now. In a way, it was not. Before the completion arrived, the settled and stable version is what was being built through all the interior work of the preceding period, and it is now present as the version of Virgo that the extraordinary reading is reading and finding extraordinary in the specific and precise alignment I described. The fourth dimension is perhaps the most unusual of the four, and the one that contributes most to that. I have never seen this quality of what I am reading in your energy right now. The fourth dimension is purpose, the specific and particular form of someone who has arrived at a clear enough sense of why they are here and what they are meant to be doing and what the specific contribution is that their particular combination of gifts and experiences and the specific form of who they are is meant to make to the world they are in the form available to them right now. And in this specific season, purpose alignment is the rarest of the four because it requires not just the other three, but the specific experience of the other three in a form that is integrative, that brings together the relational and the material and the internal into a coherent sense of what they are all for and why, and what the specific direction is, that all of them together are pointing toward. You have arrived at that integration, Virgo, in this specific moment and in this specific season of your specific story. And the integration is what makes the reading produce the my God and the I have never seen this in the specific and genuine form of someone who has actually not seen this in quite this form in 20 years. I want to say something about what it took to arrive at the four-dimensional alignment that I am reading right now in your energy, because I think knowing what produced it is as important as knowing what it is for how you receive the reading and what you do with it in the period that follows. What it took was time, the specific and sustained form of time that produces the integration rather than the faster and more transient form that produces only the appearance of integration without the full depth that the real thing requires to be actually integrated rather than only assembled. In the surface form, that looks like integration from outside, but that has not yet been through the particular and demanding process of becoming real integration rather than the assembled version of it. What it also took was the preceding difficulty, the seasons that were demanding in the various and specific forms that demand has taken for you in the time that produced the version of you that the reading is now reading as extraordinary in the four-dimensional alignment. The difficulty was not incidental to the extraordinary reading. It was productive of it in the specific and direct way that difficult seasons are always productive of the versions of people that emerge from them as more integrated and more stable and more purposefully directed than the versions that entered the difficult seasons. Before the difficulty had done its work, in the form it needed to do it, to produce the version that is here now, reading as extraordinary. The difficulty produced this. You are its result. And the result is something I have not seen in 20 years. In quite this form, for quite this sign, which is worth sitting with, for at least the length of this message before the ordinary resumes, and the Virgo internal critic returns with its next improvement project that has nothing to do with what is actually being said in this reading about who you are right now and what that actually is for the immediate future, the days and weeks and months that follow this reading, and the specific period that the four-dimensional alignment is pointing toward as the season of its full expression, when four dimensions align and point together in the coherent and integrated form. I have described what follows is a period of extraordinary productivity in all four dimensions simultaneously, rather than the ordinary productivity of one or two dimensions moving forward, while the others either wait or move slowly in directions that are less clear or less aligned with the overall direction that the full self is moving toward. The period that follows this reading is the period of the full expression of the four-dimensional alignment in the real and visible dimension of your actual daily life, in whatever specific forms each dimension produces when it is moving forward with the energy of three other aligned dimensions, moving in the same direction simultaneously. I want to give you something specific now for how to be in this period that the alignment is creating, because being in the alignment is as important as the alignment itself. And there are particular ways of being in it that honor the alignment and produce the most from what it is making available. And there are ways of being in it that squander the alignment by not recognizing it or not acting from it in the full form that the alignment supports. The first way to honor the alignment is to let yourself be in it, without the Virgo instinct to find what is not yet aligned and focus there, rather than on the four things that are, because there will always be something that is not yet aligned in any reading of anyone's life. And the Virgo instinct to identify the unaligned thing and work on it is generally a strength. But in this specific moment, it is the most available way of missing what is actually happening. In the four dimensions that are aligned and pointing together in the extraordinary configuration that this reading is describing, be in the alignment, Virgo, for as long as it is here in this form, and let it produce what it is capable of producing from inside the being in it, rather than from the position of looking for what is not yet quite right in the fifth dimension that is not aligned, while the four that are doing something extraordinary that has not been seen in 20 years. Whew. The second way to honor the alignment is to act from it in the real and decisive form of someone who knows that the conditions they are in are extraordinary, and who therefore acts with the specific confidence of someone who has the support of four aligned dimensions behind every action they take. In this period, the actions you take from inside the alignment will produce more than the same actions taken outside it, because the alignment amplifies what is directed from it in the specific form of four dimensions supporting, rather than one or two supporting and the others resisting or moving in conflicting directions that dilute what any single action is capable of producing. When the supporting is only partial, act boldly in this period from the alignment that is here. In the extraordinary form that the 20 years of reading has not produced before in quite this combination, for quite this sign, in quite this season. And the third way to honor the alignment, which I have saved for last, because it is the most specifically Virgo instruction of the three, and the one that requires the most from the particular quality of the sign I am speaking to. Allow yourself to be known as extraordinary in this season by the people who are in a position to know it and to benefit from knowing it about who you are and what you are capable of and what you are producing in the four-dimensional alignment that this reading is describing. Virgo is not always comfortable with being known as extraordinary, because the particular Virgo relationship to humility and to the accurate assessment of what has and has not been done sometimes produces a deflection of recognition that is actually warranted in the form of minimizing or qualifying, or the particular and characteristic Virgo response of pointing to everything that is not yet done or not yet good enough, rather than receiving the recognition that what is done and what is good enough is already something worth acknowledging as significant in the form it is significant in, which in this reading is extraordinary. Do not deflect the extraordinary, Virgo. Receive it in the full and unqualified form that 20 years of reading has just verified is available to you in this specific season of this specific version of your life that is producing something I have genuinely not seen before in quite this form, because 20 years has taught me that the direct is what lands. When something significant is being said, and I want this to land in the full and complete form of what it actually is, rather than in the reduced form that indirect language sometimes produces when the significant thing is softened into something more comfortable and therefore smaller than what it actually is. What is happening in your energy right now is extraordinary, not in the inflated or performed sense of someone who is trying to make a reading sound more significant than it is by using the language of the extraordinary without the genuine basis for the using of it in the genuine and verified sense of 20 years of looking and not having seen this before in this form for this sign, in this configuration of 4 line dimensions pointing together in the specific and convergent direction that produces what no single dimension or a pair of dimensions is capable of producing on their own. This is the season, Virgo, in the most complete and specific form of that phrase. Be in it, act from it, and let it produce. What 4 aligned dimensions in an extraordinary Virgo are capable of producing when they are honored correctly by the person they are aligned in, who now knows what is happening in their specific energy right now. Whew, my God, I have never seen this, and now you know what this actually is and what to do with it.